Raoul Peck, it is an honor. I've been a longtime fan of your work, and this is really the first time we've sat down. So you don't know how much how eagerly I've anticipated wanting to talk to you, especially about this film. So I will start with, and having done some research, I know that you really are looking in between projects for subjects or stories worthy of your attention and worthy of your time to tell. What was it? And we'll start here because we have plenty of time to talk about some of your other work. But Ernest Cole's story, what was it about his story that kind of affected you and made you want to invest the time in bringing that story to audiences?
Well, one of the major things is always how many layers of stories that I can bring into a film.
Mhm.
How does it connect to my own fight today? Because I don't do film or biography about the past. It's always how does that reality, that story, that character, or the legacy of that character bring clarity to us today?
Mhm.
How does it help me to deal with what is happening around me right now? So Ernest Cole was, after a few years of researching, it became clear to me that I had all those different items, including one that is my own personal story as being the son of parents who were in exile, as being a young man in the Berlin of, when I was 17, in a Berlin where a lot of my elders were people who belonged to those liberation movements, who were in exile themselves, both from Africa or from Latin America or from the Middle East. Those are the people who educate me politically. So telling Ernest Cole's story was also, or let's say, my own personal story enabled me to be able to tell Ernest's story.
Now, I was gonna say, and I apologize. I didn't know if I cut you off or not, Raul.
No, no.
I was gonna say the thing that I took away from his story was two emotions. One was one of sadness, that there was a man who was able to leave South Africa, you know, come to America with work in mind, did some of the work, and then found that he couldn't go back home. And I think that to me was probably one of the more sadder aspects, along with the fact that I would also say, and this is only me, and maybe you probably see it a little differently. I thought the fact that he didn't find a lot of peace while he was in South Africa during that apartheid regime, and then he comes to America and he's really sort of on an island, isolated by himself, where he's doing the work and he can connect with some folks from his homeland, but he never was able to find peace in America. Um, that part of the story almost feels like a story that's not just an Ernest Cole story, but a story of us as a people, Raul. Could you speak to that?
Oh yes, yes, on many many different levels.
Right.
Don't forget this young man. He's 26.
Mhm.
He basically evaded his jail, which was apartheid South Africa, where every day he was risking his life. He succeeded in taking all the pictures that he could to alert the rest of the world about what was going on, for the black people, and not only the black people, the mixed race, all the different classification that they had, and the reality basically of what is apartheid. And he comes to what have been sold to him like the free world. And then he discovered very rapidly within 6 months that that's not what I was being sold, and those people were not waiting for me. They were not the savior of whatever, and he discovered the whole hypocrisy that the West had towards South Africa, and also racism. For him, somebody who grew up in apartheid, it's like somebody from the South. He know exactly when there is racist involved. The signs, the body language, the looks, etc. So it was incredible that he fled hell and found some sort of hell as well, and then he's isolated because in the 60s it was not that there was a huge South African community
Mhm.
in the US or in New York. So that's isolation. And then added to that, his dream is to become a great photographer. His model is Cartier-Bresson, one of the greatest French or universal photographer, and that was his ideal. And what did Cartier-Bresson, among other things, is to travel the world and to photograph the human condition. And when he came now to be able eventually to do that himself,
Mhm.
he just realized, oh, there is just this little box they want to put me in. That's it. I can't even say, well, I want to go into fashion. I want to
Right.
go into this. I want to experiment. I want to photograph, celebrities, whatever, portrait. That choice he didn't have, despite the success of his book, House of Bondage, despite, everybody talking about his work and the value of his photos. No, they would give him assignment that in their minds fits him.
Right.
They assign him a place. And that's why I put at the beginning of the film this phrase that he coined, like the total man doesn't have one aspect. So that was his goal. That was his ambition. So you can imagine the frustration and the anger as well that could arise and ultimately participate in his demise.
So, Raul, I think you and I, as we're having this conversation in 2024, we're blessed to live in this time, right? So we have opportunities and there are things that we can do. When we talk about Ernest Cole's story, Ernest coming out, born in 1940, by the time he comes, as you said, he was 26 years old. Um, and we can only speculate, right? I think it may be a case for Ernest that his genius came along too soon, right? If he comes along maybe 20 years later, maybe his story is different. What do you think?
Well, I tend never to think like this because you would say, well, Frederick Douglass came
That
100 years too
came
early.
right,
Or
right.
Malcolm came
Malcolm came too
way too
soon.
early.
Martin came too soon, right?
That you can't see history like that. We are, what we needs to do is to be in our time and to participate, to engage with all the power we have, and if we don't have the power, is to find the power. We are right now in this country confronted to a totally uncharted territory, where we are seeing day by day how people who should be on the front line are basically looking at if they are just referees, you know, and people that call themselves the gatekeeper. And I'm talking about most of the press, you know. Now you're not a gatekeeper anymore, you're a referee. You're just seeing what's going on. That's the same thing that happened when I Am Not Your Negro came. To their credit, a lot of film critics, they did their homework and they say, oh my God, these are the film we have been showing and criticizing, but without seeing the racism or the bigotry that were in those films. Baldwin had to teach us that. And we had forgotten that Baldwin had written probably one of the best film critics book ever you know, and at least uh, a lot of today's film critics wrote about it and really almost asked for forgiveness that they didn't see Hollywood filmmaking the way Baldwin did. And so now we are in the similar time where anything goes, you know. We're just referees. We are, we used to be gatekeepers, but now we open the flood, whoever can be outrageous, whoever can say how many lies. We don't hardly have to do any fact checking, you know. Uh, any opinions goes, and I'm just the referee, whoever yelled the most once, that's the world we are in right now. So,
Now, oh,
uh,
good.
so that's to try to answer your questions and comments. It's really I think a lot of people underestimate the work that or the resistance and the engagement that is needed today. And it's not you're not going to do it on the social media.
So, and it's funny. Okay, so I want to tackle that. And I was like, Raul, you're giving me a lot of red meat here that I want to respond to. I wanted to, I was doing some research and I found a quote from you that said you came initially into the film industry because of politics and content, not because you wanted to make Hollywood films, right? And I
Mhm.
see that pouring out of your work. You talked about I Am Not Your Negro, and I remember seeing that doc, and it had such a profound effect on me because I'm a huge fan, or I wouldn't use the word fan. Fan is the wrong word. I'm a huge advocate for the teachings of both Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And the fact that you have those two individuals, along with James Baldwin and his observations, as you called it in the film, him being a witness, right? With Medgar Evers as well. I thought that film has had such a profound effect. As a film critic, I curate films. I've curated that film, shown it to people, watched their reaction. I just think as a documentary, it's a thunderbolt. It feels like a cinematic thunderbolt. The way you structured that story and put it together. And I wanted to thank you because I know we're not here for that film, but I really want to thank you because that film is one. I was telling somebody earlier that I was going to talk to you today. I almost watch that film every 6 months, man. Like you got to stay in the moment. And I Am Not Your Negro, based on Remember This House. That's a major masterwork from you, sir.
Well, thank you. And the same way Baldwin changed my life as well. And he's he we need him today. We need a lot of our leaders that were killed and assassinated by the system. That's where we are today. And there is nobody today who can really uh, 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 talk and his voice can be heard. We are in a weird time. By the way, both white and black.
Right.
And so Baldwin is like an important anchor point for everybody. And by the way, I talked to a colleagues yesterday who came again to tell me thank you for I Am Not Your Negro. He said, this film is saving my life every day, you know, and that's Baldwin's legacy. And I do hope Ernest as well legacy for not only South Africans but Africans and everywhere, because everybody can see their own life through the life of Ernest Cole, and because he lives in those two worlds, and he was able to compare, he was able to denounce the hypocrisy, and when he tells you, in South Africa, I was afraid to be arrested. But when I went to the south of the United States, I was afraid to be killed.
Killed. Yeah.
Those are the exact words of James Baldwin when Medgar Evers called him to, please, man, come down there. You need to see this for yourself, and you need to write about it. From the airport, Baldwin was scared to death because all the gestures, all the look. He did not recognize, how does they behave as a human being
Right.
in that place. That's how Emmett Till got killed, because he didn't have the codes, and he was seen immediately, and
Hmm.
he was punished immediately. So that's the world we are in today. And it, unfortunately, I must say, it's not very different. On the contrary, people that would never have said what they say on TV today, they could never have said it 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Right. That's true.
Today, anything goes. Anything goes.
Right. So, Raul, you said that, and rightfully so, and I agree with you that we've lost a lot of our leaders and people who would stand up and try to fight and beat back so
Well,
much of
well,
the
they
misinformation.
killed them. Not
Yeah,
really
pretty
lost.
much.
In
That's
fact,
what they
they
did.
killed them.
But I
Yes.
was going to say, we are the leaders right now. So, right now, the work that you're doing on the front line cinematically is really, really important. People like myself who are talking to you to help get the word out, we all have parts to play. So,
Exactly.
I was going to ask you, Raul, when I was coming up, when you would study history of people of color, we would talk about in America, we would call people a race person. He's a race man. When we think about the type of work you're doing, how do you see yourself and your contribution? How would you describe the work that you're doing or who you are?
Well, it's not so much for me to say that, because I want to stay inside my work, but I can, quote Baldwin the way he saw himself. He always saw himself as somebody that is in permanent construction. One
Mm,
thing he never accepted is that anybody tells him who he is,
right.
because this is something that he is building himself. He is nourishing him with everything that he is learning around the world. He had to go to France to be able to understand what his country was really.
Mhm.
And he's one of the most incredible analytics of his own country. He did better than any psychologist would have done, and understanding the DNA of this country. And at the same time, he always think as a humanist. It was never about race for him. And by the way, he succeeded in telling us something incredible that Ernest Cole as well does through his pictures, is to say colors doesn't exist. It's about human being. And if you have a problem with my color, that's your problem. That's not mine. I can't let you come into my head and decide for me and put some weird, thinking that you have, weird complex that you have, weird fears that you have, and make me part of that. You know, go see a doctor, go read some books, go learn your history, learn from it. Don't come to me as I am the problem in your life. And that's an important things to understand. We are not the problem. The problem is elsewhere. The people who conquered, the people who killed, the people who committed genocide, and their descendants who don't even have the courtesy to learn their own history, and who are now trying to make some backlash about, oh, you go too far now. We are become sensitive to, we can't hear those words. You're aggressing me. You know, well, that's fuck. That is, sorry for the word. It's history. Learn your history.
Right.
Go back to school and stop burning books that you better read to understand where you come from. you know so that's we are in a total nonsense today. you know and again, to come back to Ernest, I mean, he deciphered all that.
Right.
That's why this film for me means a lot. People I've been doing Q&A for a few weeks now.
Hmm.
People do make the connection to what is happening today.
Right.
With the distance, they get it. And you see the hypocrisy of the Western world, you know, not wanting to boycott South Africa, pretending, well, it's going to hurt the blacks. They've done it for 60 years saying that,
Right.
and when it's about Russia invading Ukraine, not that I accept that Russia invade Ukraine, but they were quick to say, no, no, boycott all the time.
Hmm.
We don't need to make sure that the Russian citizens are punished. No, that's not a problem. I have Russian friends. I have one of my composer, the composer of Ernest Cole. He's a Russian. He lives in France, but he had to leave Russia, and he's somebody I've worked with for multiple years. So, and if you ask him, yeah, something needs to be done about this autocratic leader. But so the whole hypocrisy of all that, and you can see what's happening in Gaza right now.
Right.
It's like you're killing like 40,000 people.
Hmm.
Supposedly you're going after a terrorist.
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter if you kill one terrorist a day, but you are allowed to kill 2,000 a day as collateral damage. In what world does that make sense?
Wow.
So yeah, so again, for me, each film is a way to to resist and to give to a younger generation the instrument for their fight, because it's all in there. The same way I learned from my elders, I learned from Malcolm, I learned from Martin Luther King Jr., I learned from Baldwin, I learned from Medgar Evers, I learned from Toussaint Louverture in my home country, I learned from Fanon, I learned from Césaire. We should honor our elders and learn from them. And most of them gave their life for us to be here today. So we have a job to do. We cannot just be spectators and eating popcorn.
Right.
No, that's a privilege,
Yeah.
you know. Even the right to vote, people
Hmm.
died for it.
Right.
Okay, so it's not a game. And I have great problem right now to be patient, to be understanding of people, telling about their issues, their
Right.
personal issues. Yes, we all have personal issues, but what about the collective issue?
Right.
The future of your children, you know? Is that not
Raul.
important?
No, no, I got you. And I was going to say, Raul, you know what? It is an honor, and I wish we could sit down again and have a much longer conversation, but that's my time. Sir
Sorry, I
Ernest.
talked too long. I
Oh,
didn't
no,
give
no, no,
you
you
time to
good.
ask your
Trust me.
questions.
You saw me going, look. But Ernest Cole, Lost and Found, is in theaters next week, November 22nd. I look forward not just for audiences to see this film, but I always look forward to whatever you got coming out next because I know who you are as a filmmaker, and I love, love, love your work, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
You
you,
take
Tom.
care and enjoy your day, Raul.
Thank you.
All right, it's my pleasure.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.